Welcome to our session on traveling with dementia. Although you may not be planning to travel internationally in the coming weeks or months, as restrictions ease, many of us are planning to bring some form of travel back into our lives. People living with dementia and caregivers need to consider the impact of dementia when making travel plans, and so in this session, we'll talk about exactly that. Traveling can be an enjoyable activity for everyone. However, extra support, careful planning, and the right adjustments are important to minimize travel-related stress. There is little doubt that traveling with dementia can present a number of challenges. We are going to look at some of the things to consider, including paying attention to the current situation, routine, and dementia symptoms. This information can help us plan successful travel and also reveal potential problems. Warning signs that travel may not be appropriate or enjoyable. We will look at some travel tips and some travel alternatives to traveling. The goal is for you to come away with some strategies to help make the trip as enjoyable as possible for everyone involved. Although people living with dementia generally do best in well-ordered, familiar, and stable settings, travel can be successful given some thoughtful planning to help create the right conditions. If possible, have open discussions about any travel plans and talk about your concerns. And once the itinerary is established, give everyone a copy for their own reference or post it where both of you can see it. If it is not possible to have an open conversation about how dementia affects one's ability to travel, be prepared to work independently. Some of you tuning in today may be making most of the decisions. You will be travel agents, travel planners, tour guides, and companions. You will work in the background to ensure an enjoyable travel experience. It is usually better to travel in the early stages of the illness, as later in the progression of the disease, disorientation, agitation, or distress may become too acute. It is important to recognize and prepare for the fact that the person living with dementia's level of functioning may decrease during the trip due to the stress of unfamiliar environments and routines. Sometimes it's just too much change. No matter how fun travel or visiting is, it also increases the stimulation for both of you, and any person living with dementia has much lower resilience to change. Planning ahead is critical. It is especially important to plan in case something happens to the travel companion. You need to consider whether travel is still a viable option. There are some warning signs that may indicate that it may be past the time that travel will still be an enjoyable experience rather than the pleasure you anticipate. One warning sign is increasing disorientation or agitation in familiar settings. Although a person might not say anything verbally, usually the body language will be very clear if you pay attention. Someone who is disoriented will likely begin to look increasingly confused or tense and may physically draw into themselves and slow down or even stop walking altogether. If someone becomes disoriented in familiar settings, traveling to an unfamiliar setting may be more upsetting, as it is very likely to increase the feelings of disorientation, which can be incredibly scary. Another indicator that suggests that travel might be challenging is when someone wants to go home on outings or day trips. One care partner shared that his wife had been very keen to see their son and his family, but then consistently insisted on leaving within 10 minutes of arriving. Everyone involved found this difficult, especially when dinner had been prepared and a good long visit had been planned. Watch for signs that the person may no longer feel as confident as they once did. Some people with dementia will withdraw in social situations. They may seek a quiet place or a corner, want to leave the situation, or just stop interacting. This behavior is also a sign of stress or overstimulation. Other warning signs include getting stressed, anxious, or obsessive over upcoming appointments or events. They could be getting teary, anxious, or withdrawn in crowded, noisy settings. Even if you are still able to travel, crowds and noisy settings can be very difficult, especially if you have memory loss. One couple I knew, pre-pandemic of course, had traveled to Vegas a couple times each year. The wife was busy planning the next trip, but the husband confessed to me that he no longer felt comfortable on his own in Vegas when she would go into shops and tell him to go ahead and she'd catch up. He wasn't sure how to talk to her about the fear he felt when she left his side, and he felt guilty about not really wanting to continue traveling to Vegas. Other signs that indicate that traveling may present more challenges include problems managing continence. This is enough of a challenge in a familiar home environment, but when traveling where washrooms may not always be available and are unfamiliar, incontinence can be particularly difficult. Of course, wandering behavior is something that can significantly increase when traveling. Like most dementia-related behaviors, the urge to move, find someone or something is not one that easily controlled, and in an unfamiliar environment, this can quickly lead to someone getting lost. Another warning sign is an increase in delusions, paranoid response, or disinhibited behaviors. If any of these symptoms are present, it may mean that travel is not a good idea. If the travel is unavoidable, providing a familiar and reassuring companion is the first consideration. In some cases, it would be advisable to consult a specialist to explore whether medication may be useful. If none of these warning signs are present, it may still be a good idea to do a trial by taking a short trip using the type of transportation that is planned for the longer trip, or just checking into a local hotel for a couple of nights. The smaller trial run will help establish the current capacity for travel and provide a good idea of whether to pursue the original plans or not. There is no doubt that acknowledging and planning for those challenges is an important part of traveling with dementia. But it is also important to note that living with dementia does not automatically mean that travel must stop. Sophie, a care partner, recently shared that although there were a few things that she and her husband were able to laugh about later that were quite stressful at the time, her husband continued to enjoy traveling, even though he would retain very few memories of the trip just completed. They were able to enjoy their time together, and for Sophie and David, although there was much more planning involved ahead of time, they felt that traveling continued to be a good experience in lots of ways. Like so many aspects of living with dementia, traveling with dementia means planning ahead to increase the chances of a successful trip. Preparation and pre-planning can reduce some of the stressors associated with traveling. As mentioned, consider a trial trip and include the type of transportation you are expecting to use. For example, if you are thinking about taking an international flight when that becomes possible again, you might want to plan a weekend flight to another town in BC. This can be an opportunity to experience the airport at both ends and some time in the confines of an airplane. You can stay in an unfamiliar hotel to see how that works for you. Take time to create a contingency plan and to consider what to do if either of you get sick or separated. Learn as much as you can about the place you'll be visiting so you can anticipate what you'll need. You likely already know that familiarity is a key component of success with dementia. Sticking with the familiar can include returning to places you have traveled before, looking for familiar chain restaurants, and using familiar hotels. Often chains have their rooms set up very similarly, which can also be helpful. Consider whether you might need to change the mode of travel. If you have always loved long car drives or RV drives, perhaps your trip would be more successful if you shortened the travel time and flew direct to your destination. Or perhaps a train trip might be easier than air travel. And lastly, include your physician in your travel plans. They may have suggestions that you have not thought of or considered. Keep it simple and aim for as few changes in routine as you reasonably can. Try for a direct flight to reduce the number of stops, or if that is not possible, build in flexibility and stopovers to enable a more gradual adjustments to time differences. If you're traveling by car for a long distance, consider extending the time to get there and driving shorter distances each day. For travel companions, while a holiday may provide a needed break in your usual routine with a reduction in the daily task you need to do, for example, meals you don't need to be shopped for or cooked, you still need to be prepared to do everything for two. This amount of responsibility can be taxing, so try to get plenty of rest before the trip and allow time for each of you to rest. A frequent comment that people living with dementia is how tired they become. Don't pack too much into any day and consider just doing one thing in a day. The energy requirements of a brain that is dealing with a progressive brain disease are high, and traveling taxes anyone's brain. Make sure you take the necessary time to rest. Less is more. You might even want to have an additional person travel with you to help. It can be a very well worthwhile investment so that no one becomes overwhelmed. If possible, avoid traveling during peak seasons to reduce the chance of big crowds and travel delays. Avoid elaborate sightseeing trips, tours, and keep it simple. Again, a brain living with dementia needs more time to absorb experiences and needs more time to rest and process. Ensure emergency health services are available if needed. This means researching your destination and knowing where to go and what to do in an emergency. It also means having medical information, list of medications, allergies, doctors, family contacts, and copies of legal documents such as an enduring power of attorney with you at all times. As mentioned earlier, don't assume that things will be the same as they always because functioning can often decrease in loud and bustling situations. For example, don't assume that you can meet someone outside of the bathroom in the airport by saying, "Wait for me here," just because you were able to do that successfully a week previously. In airports or bus or train stations, this common interaction can be a problem and a way for people to easily get lost. Expecting and being prepared for a decrease in functioning that doesn't happen is much better than the other way around. When thinking about what to bring with you, create a travel bag of essentials that you will carry with you at all times. Some people living with dementia may get agitated at particular times on the trip, such as when everyone is boarding a plane or a bus, or during a plane's takeoff or landing. Distraction techniques, such as using noise-canceling headphones to listen to music or eating a favorite snack, can help to reduce anxiety. A change of clothes is particularly important if there is even occasional incontinence or if there is a likelihood of spills or falls. It is true for all travel, and especially when traveling with dementia. Carry extra medications, even for the trip, plus up to a week extra. And don't forget to stay hydrated. Either put a bottle or two of water into your bag or carry an empty water bottle if you are able to refill it easily. Dehydration increases confusion, and planes in particular can have very dry air. Travelers may want to wear an identification bracelet at all times. Make sure that the following information is in a familiar spot in a purse, a wallet, or pocket. the person's name, the name and address and phone number of your holiday address, as well as any stopovers or the day's itinerary. Mark all clothing with their name. Make sure you have a recent photograph of the person living with dementia. When we are with someone every day, we may not be aware of how much their appearance has changed. Also note details of what the person is wearing and preferred places of interest. This will help during a search if one is necessary. Take a list of important contacts, such as a doctor or family. Take copies of your power of attorney and representation agreement. Take a list of recent and current medications, which may be helpful if either of you become unwell. You may even want to carry copies of current prescriptions if it is an extended trip or overseas trip. The Society has courtesy cards available, 3 for the person living with dementia and 3 for travel companions. The language changes depending on what you are comfortable with or which best reflects the situation. The care partner or travel companion needs to hold all important possessions such as passports, money, schedules, and tickets. If the person living with dementia becomes agitated by this, make copies for them, but ensure you keep all the originals. It can be very helpful to slip a courtesy card in the front of the passport so you can discreetly give it to customs and other authorities. And if you are interested in the Society's courtesy cards, please feel welcome to give us a call on the first link Dementia Helpline, and that number will be posted at the end of our session today. One of the most challenging parts of the journey can be the airport, particularly the security checkpoints. Some travelers with dementia may have the difficulty following instructions and responding to questions. We've heard stories of security staff separating people living with dementia from their companion for extra screening, which added to their distress. As mentioned, a lanyard with a pocket on it worn around the neck can be a handy piece to tuck away travel documents, making them easy to access when you already have your hands full. Consider having the traveler with dementia having one of the courtesy cards on them in their lanyard, and as suggested, have it with their passport, ticket, and identification for security personnel. Book a flight that leaves at a quiet time of day. For example, some airports are very busy between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. It can be a lot easier for you to find your way and access assistance if you are traveling outside the busy periods. Inform the airline that you are traveling with a person living with dementia. You may want to request early boarding, a wheelchair, transportation upon arrival, help getting on and off the plane, or help with stowing away carry-on baggage. You can often find information about the seating arrangements of the airplane online. Find the best seats for you. For example, many people choose seats close to the washrooms. Although many airplanes charge for seat selections when you book, you will likely find that this will be a worthwhile investment. It may be that an inexpensive tablet computer can hold books or magazines or games. One daughter recently told me my father learned how to play solitaire on a tablet in 10 minutes and he loved it. Or coloring books for adults can be an unexpected pleasure. Another care partner had shared that his 98-year-old mother was introduced to coloring in her residence and then introduced it to him. Now it is something they both enjoy doing together. Remember that many people living with dementia have problems concentrating. The traveler with dementia may be unable to do certain activities and tasks for a length of time. Plan for the situation by having a variety of activities available. Ask for help. Request assistance when booking flights or cruises, and inform the staff ahead of time that you are traveling with a person living with dementia. Time is one of the most important aspects of traveling and one of the easiest to overlook in terms of tips for traveling with dementia. There are 4 key aspects to remember. First, allow plenty of time for everything. Travel is confusing, and it is highly likely that you will need more time than you've needed in the past. Take frequent breaks and allow everyone time to catch their breath and check in to see if things are starting to feel overwhelming. For all of us, as we age, there can be a big difference between what we want to do and what we are able to do. As much as possible, travel during the person's best time of day. Many people living with dementia have strong daily rhythms and have times of the day when energy is higher or lower. Plan travel accordingly. And finally, take time differences into account. A 6 or 7 hour day that crosses a couple of time zones is going to be quite different than the same travel day in BC. For example, you are likely going to need to allow extra rest and rejuvenation time for travel involving time changes. Regularly check in that the person is comfortable in the seat. Make sure the seatbelt is not too tight or restrictive, as they may not even realize that it is digging in or bruising. As mentioned before, choosing familiar restaurants can help you decide to eat in a hotel room because loud restaurants can be overstimulating. Be alert and pay attention to body language to recognize warning signs of anxiety and agitation. This will be different for each person. For example, repeated differences to not going too far or asking how you are doing can be signs that the person is beginning to feel anxious or uncomfortable. There are a number of things that you can do to make travel safer. As mentioned, wearing identification bracelets and recording contact information on the bracelet to keep in a wallet or a purse can help with the reunification if you become separated. When possible, engage the safety lock to prevent accidental opening of the car door. Be aware of the passenger's safety when getting out of the car, especially when parking near traffic. Do not get in the car if you are worried that the current stress and anxiety levels of the person living with dementia may impact on your ability to drive safely and effectively. Take the time needed to ensure safe travel. When staying in a hotel, don't hesitate to let the staff know ahead of time if you have any special needs, like ensuring your room is quiet during the daytime or far away from traffic of elevators. You can often look online for photos of the hotel room so that you can survey it ahead of time for any safety hazards or to alert you to things you might want to bring, such as a small nightlight. It can be very helpful to cover sliding glass doors to ensure the person living with dementia won't walk into the door if they don't see it. Covering these large glass doors may also help to reduce the urge to wander. If staying in a hotel and wandering is a problem, lock the door to the room with the safety latch or carry a childproof doorknob cover. Consider a portable door alarm that goes off if disturbed. Unfamiliar bathroom taps and knobs can be very confusing for a person living with dementia. Make sure that you turn the shower on and adjust the water temperature. Leave the bathroom light on all night to help with finding it and to provide a bit of ambient light in the room. When visiting with family or friends, have an honest conversation to prepare them ahead of time about changes that have happened since the last visit. Discuss any special requests like a bedroom with a bathroom attached or shifting furniture to allow for easy passage of a new walker. Spend some time thinking about how family and friends can be helpful. You know that people are going to ask and they want to help, so be prepared to accept. One of the best ways that family and friends can help may be simply to spend time with each of you on their own. Visiting other people can allow both travelers to get a break from each other. As much as possible, try to keep your normal routine, and that will likely involve having a conversation with family or friends about what your daily routine looks like and about the need for them to have flexibility in making plans. And finally, keep a sense of humor and laugh at the funny things that happen along the way. In fact, you may want to keep a journal. These can be some of the best moments to revisit after the trip. Travel insurance is a wise investment when traveling with dementia, as it is when traveling with any health concerns, and it is particularly important for booked flights or hotels since travel plans may need to be changed. And once again, time is an important aspect of travel insurance. Allow plenty of time to investigate the best travel insurance policy for the situation and shop around. Different insurers have different policies and premiums and different coverages for a person living with dementia. Travel can become very challenging for both of you as the disease progresses. However, it can also be difficult to decide not to continue traveling. We often hear from caregivers who feel that they need to give their family member one last trip, or it may be the caregiver who is reluctant to acknowledge the changes in their person. It is important to be honest with yourself. It may not be possible to have one last trip. Again, we've heard from so many caregivers who have tried the one last trip and had poor experiences. Often upon their return, the travel companion often is finally able to admit that they really knew it was too late. One wife told us of a misadventure on a cruise ship. She and her husband were on the elevator and the door closed behind her, with her husband still in the elevator. The mishap was followed by a long search, which of course was hugely stressful for both of them. She learned from that day on to always have her husband step out of the elevator first, with her right behind him. When overnight travel is no longer possible, you both can look to enjoy activities close to home. It could be having a staycation, which can be a lot of fun. Enjoy outings to favorite sites and restaurants. It could be a picnic in the park, beach, or lake day trip. Have family and friends visit you in your neighborhood and play tour guide. It could be planting a garden and invite people over to enjoy it. Go through your pictures and stories from past trips and reminisce together. As we come to the end of our session, here are the numbers for the helpline. If you have any questions about information you've heard here or any other questions about living with dementia, or if you're interested in our programs, please don't hesitate to call the First Link Dementia Helpline. English services are available Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. at 1-800-936-6033. Services are also available Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. in Punjabi, Cantonese, and Mandarin at alzbc.org/FLDHL. Thank you so much for tuning in today.